Wonderful. So here today to talk about sustainable warmth that's been recently launched and some of the options that are available in terms of delivery models with the hub support. So you may all be aware of this, so I'll just quickly run through the headlines. So the Sustainable Warmth is funding opportunity, bringing together both LAD Phase 3, and this is 200 million, very much like LAD 1A and 1B, focused on low-income households and the most inefficient properties, and HUG Phase 1, which is 150 million available to support low-income households, but this being particularly off the gas grid. Applications can come directly from local authorities or local energy hubs taking the lead of local authorities for consortia. So local authorities can form their own consortia, or you can form consortias with the hubs, or you can directly apply. So the deadline for bids to BEIS is the 4th of August. With grant offers being made in autumn 21, looking for delivery to commence January 22, and running through in terms of delivery to March 23. So a much bigger delivery window than we've seen through the previous LADs. So the 250 and the 150 million are going to be running simultaneously. It will be a single application, although both parts will be sort of evaluated and awarded independently, but there will be one set of monitoring and reporting. So as I've mentioned, the competition covers off gas, so that's the home upgrade grant, and on gas, which is LAD 3. Where the household is on a low income and likely to be in fuel poverty, E, F and G rated properties will be prioritised, and the upgrade to band D properties is going to be limited to 30%. As with LAD 1A and Phase 1 and Phase 2, this is also about supporting economic resilience and green recovery, so local supply chain skills and so on. Social housing in sustainable warmth is not expected to be at any more than 10%. So that's really as part of a mixed tenure approach. So looking at infill rather than specific social housing proposals. It is expected that those schemes will go through the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund. And just to note as well that there is a target for EPCC, or where that's not achievable, EPCD. So in terms of key eligibility criteria, the minimum bid to sustainable warmth is 250,000. So if you're an individual local authority applying, the minimum bid would be 250k. There is no maximum bid. As before, the income threshold is 30k gross or 20,000 after housing cost, or the equivalisation in terms of household composition. But just to note, that is along the lines of the eco criteria rather than local authorities' statements of intent. Band D's being capped at 30%, so a real focus on E, F and G. So it's a real focus on the private sector housing with the 10% cap on social housing. As with the previous phases of LAD, measures should be compatible with SAP. Fossil fuel is excluded. In LAD 3 bids, hybrid heat pumps can be included. In the home upgrade grant, there are no hybrids. That is purely non-fossil fuel, low carbon heating options. As with LAD 2, the projects must be PAS 2035, so that requires the PAS 2030-2019 installers for energy efficiency measures and MCS accredited installers for low carbon heat and renewable energy. The funding bands for LAD 3 are the same as previous phases of LAD, so that's 10,000 average for owner occupiers, 5,000 for rented properties, with a 1/3 match funding requirement. The home upgrade grant will depend on the EPC rating of the property and also what it is fuelled by. So this is really looking at the incorporation of the fabric measures alongside low carbon heat, hence the higher interventions. And you'll note there sort of park homes are capped at 15k. I think just to point out that BEIS are not looking for park home schemes. They are really looking at sort of bricks and mortar. So in terms of assessment criteria, 3 key criteria. So the strategic fit, so that's meeting the aims, outcomes and eligibility criteria of both LAD and HUG. So just to reiterate, fuel poverty, low income households, cost effective carbon savings, clean growth, economic resilience, green recovery, and that target to EPC C and EPC D. Delivery assurance, so this is really about the deliverability of the proposals, so feasibility and credibility of the project, forecasting and milestones, procurement models, resource capability and capacity, supply chain management, quality assurance, auditing, monitoring and evaluation. So this is really looking at how the teams and structures are imposed to develop and deliver schemes, what procurements are in place, supply chain management and development, so how the project's going to address that, ensuring the PAS 2035 is adhered to and there's quality assurance, and the reporting and monitoring evaluation that we provide to BEIS. In terms of value for money, looking at the cost of the project in relation to relative impact and benefits to the housing stock. So this is really looking at the value for money criteria to get those properties up the EPC bands to really meet sort of the government targets for the EPC band C. And just to reiterate again, home upgrade projects will include both fabric and heat measures. So in terms of what the hub is looking to offer, there's sort of 3 delivery options outlined here. So the option 1 is consortium proposals where the hub acts as lead authority. So that's really building on the LAD 2 delivery model where we are acting as lead authority for a number of our consortia. So in this scenario, we'd develop the bids in consultation with local authorities, basically provide a turnkey service, from the bid development through to contracting with managing agents, delivery, reporting, and strategic business planning for the future schemes. Option 2 is where, as local authority, you bid directly or as part of a consortia directly to BEIS, but you can use our managing agent framework and or the DPS. So you'd submit and develop your own bid. We would provide an access agreement to the managing agent framework or the DPS. The local authority would manage its own contractual arrangements. You'd run the DPS competitions, unless you've got the managing agent, in which case, that is part of their specification, so they could do that on your behalf. An access fee would apply. It is 1% for the managing agent framework, so that was actually determined prior to the sustainable warmth. So in the access agreement, there was a 1% fee for that. For the DPS, we still need to work out the costs around that, but we're sort of looking at indicative 2 to 4%, depending on the services that are required from local authority. And of course, the third option is you don't need to use the hub services. You can bid directly. You can use your own procured contractors. And so in this scenario, no services are provided by the hub. Verena, you have your hand up.
Yes, thanks. The access fee, does that go within the bid, or does the local authority or local authorities have to pay that themselves?
You would put that within the bid, so within the capitalisation cost. Yeah. So basically, that's an avoided cost from having to do any of your own procurements.
Marvellous, so, thank you.
Yeah, within capitalisation. So just to run through in a bit more detail of option 1. So like I've said, we're offering to act as a lead authority on behalf of local authorities who don't wish to bid to the fund directly. So that may be for many reasons. You may not have capacity, there's a service that can be utilised, so you're able to utilise the hub services. We'd prepare and submit the bid in consultation with the consortia. We would use the managing agents that have been procured through our framework, and we would also use the DPS for local supply chain growth. And I just want to point out that our framework is 4 years, and the managing agents that have been appointed are outlined in the table. So they would be the agents that would be appointed for sustainable warmth. The only caveat we have is if there is a managing agent that does not have capacity to deliver under sustainable warmth, or there are performance issues, then we do have secondary managing agents that are allocated from this group of managing agents to stand in the event that should happen. We don't think that will happen, so just to highlight, they would be the managing agents that would be appointed in respective areas. So in terms of the added value where the hub can act as lead authority, we have procured the managing agent. So where they are, contracts in flight, that will mean that there's a very short lead-in time. Most of our managing agents, well, all of them have included social values, so what they'll be doing around skills and job creation. We will also be working on supply chain development. So we do have, recently appointed 2 staff to purely work on local supply chain development and engagement. And like I say, minimal lead-in time because these are contracts in flight. So in terms of the services that we would provide, we would undertake the bid development, we would do the contracting, project management. We'd also do independent quality assurance, and we'd be responsible for all the monitoring and evaluation. We would appoint project managers to provide the technical support and resource allocated to participating authorities. We'll continue to work on regional marketing and consumer engagement material. I think particularly looking to the future, we really want to start to see how we can work on developing materials around behavioural change and the hard to reach households. A lot of low hanging fruit may have already been, targeted. So I think, it's one of the things that we're talking to BEIS about that needs to be done at a national level as well, in terms of the engagement of householders and materials and resources to support that. Which looking at some additional data licenses, so additional data sets and building on the work we've done already, so we can continue with sort of data analytics, enriching the data sources that we already have. The advantage of being able to do that at a regional level is that there is a level of efficiency of scale, so that can help with future sort of strategic business case development, informing retrofits or strategic plans in local authority areas. We're also part of a Innovate UK project, Use Smart Zero, part of the modernising energy data application. So that's looking at utilising real-time data from smart meters to identify households in fuel poverty. We've just run through the first phase of that, and from our initial data, sort of identifying that around 5% of households on smart meters are struggling to pay their fuel bills. So we're looking in the next phases to see how we can use that data to start targeting specific areas or specific households where the data is telling us that there's a struggle. And just to really highlight, there is 2.5 billion manifesto commitment for HUG. So we are expecting these programs to move forwards. Part of what we'd like to be doing is development work through LAD2, but also moving into sustainable warmth. It's really getting bid ready for what needs to be a much sort of more of a medium and long-term approach to retrofit. I've touched on local supply chain development. We see it as being absolutely critical in providing a regional and a local role in terms of developing installer capacity and capability, bringing new installers, into the retrofit works, but also looking at products and manufacturing. Quite a few of our local enterprise partnerships, inward investment teams are really keen to see how the UK manufacturing base could be enlarged, particularly around maybe sort of modern methods of construction and those types of approaches to be able enable retrofit to be scaled. We'd continue to do framework and management, and I think one of the things that's really important to us is continuous improvement. We developed the specification for LAD2 in a very, very short time frame, but the view is always that there's going to be lessons to learn. Every day is a school day, and what we learn is to inform future procurement strategies. So we can continue to provide regional frameworks and the DPS, but we want to look to see how that needs to be adapted, what might need to be changed, in the future. So it's really meeting the needs of both policy and local authorities. PAS 2035 compliance. It's new with the first scheme in terms of LAD2 to be deploying this at scale. It's complex. We have through our DPS developed the measures for the installer. So we've actually specified how this should be done. We've been working with Peter Rickaby, who's the author of the PAS 2035, to really make sure that we are demonstrating compliance with PAS 2035, we are incorporating best practice, and we'll continue to, update those specifications and add new measures, as the quality sort of guidance and the technical guidance comes out from BEIS for specifically things such as internal wall insulation and park homes. We have relationships with Trustmark MCS scheme providers, so we can continue to build on both the sort of the sharing the learning around PAS 2035, but also looking to see what are the needs for the installers, for training providers, so we can start to identify and address the gaps in provision. In terms of research and development, so we have been working with academic partners to look at how we can utilise the project data. And it's quite a broad ambition in terms of making energy consumption in buildings more secure, sustainable and affordable. So we're looking to see how we can use the data that we're generating from the projects and that can be securely available to academics once obviously the data has been anonymised to some extent, so that can then be used for academic and innovation projects that really support ourselves and local authorities and how we really scale up the ambition and the delivery for retrofit. And we want to obviously support local authorities with capacity and capability building. So on Monday we'll be launching the local authority toolkit, so that's the handbook for retrofit, a starting point. I mean, some of you that have been working in retrofit for many years, it won't be anything new, but it does bring together those resources in one place, and I think that hopefully it will sort of stimulate some conversation and also look to see where the needs are, particularly in local authorities that are just beginning this journey. And really just to end that in terms of what value can we add, would really appreciate understanding from yourselves what else do you need. We can go separate to sustainable warmth. We can start through LAD 2, looking at what the capacity and capability needs are and what we can do to address them. If there's any specific commissions, any specific resources that are required, how we can support you in being able to deliver more retrofit. So in terms of a draft cost model, and I will just like to say this is very, very draft, and we haven't had a chance to do the sort of financial modelling around this yet. So sustainable warmth, the capitalisation is 15%. If you were to use the managing agent framework, the fees that are capped in the specification are up to 8%. Within LAD 2, we've allowed a 1% for ancillary, so that's only making good prior to any retrofit being required. So it might be emptying a loft, it might be repointing, it might be removing a boiler, those sorts of costs. If it's possible, we'd like to put sort of EPC and retrofit assessments into capitalisation if there is enough budget. So that would just enable more, more to be aligned within the capital budget. So as much as possible can be spent on the actual measures. The access fee for the framework is 1%. The DPS, as I said, is to be confirmed, but it's likely to be around sort of 2% as us as being the lead authority. So for lead authority and the sort of management of the framework, we're looking at maybe 1.5%, and then looking at participating authorities at around 0.5%. Like I say, these costs will will be updated after we've sort of run those sort of financial models in terms of what we think it's going to cost us to actually deliver. I just want to say, the medium-term aim in terms of sort of capitalisation, where we're acting as lead authority, is to be able to provide the actual capacity and capability within local authorities. So ideally, we'd like to see over the medium term, at least 0.6 to 1 full-time equivalent within each local authority to be able to undertake the work that you need to do to work as a partner in these projects. So option 2 is you can access the managing framework and the DPS. So that's you bidding directly into BEIS. So we've got the managing agent framework and we've got the DPS. I've mentioned the access fee, so 1% for the managing agent framework. We would then, you then have access to your allocated managing agent. You then have the call-off contract with that managing agent, and you manage that directly. Within the specification for the managing agent framework, we do require them to use the DPS and also to manage that service. So I can send around, if you don't have it already, the managing agent specification, so you can see the types of services that are required. So there's the 1% access fee, and like I've sort of said in the previous slide, managing agent fees are up to 8% of the capital value of the project. If you would like to just access the DPS directly, we think that's probably about a 1 to 2% fee, and that does include, as I've mentioned, all the PAS 2035 specifications. So PAS 2030-2019 for energy efficiency measures, and MCS compliant specifications for the low carbon heat and renewable energy. There are template contracts to go with that. So there's 2 types of contract that we have for the installer. So that suite of documents is available. It would require, if you're using the DPS directly, that the local authority would need to run the mini competitions. But you've got the specs to support you. You just need to really sort of package together what those works are, put them onto the DPS as a mini competition, undertake the evaluation, the contracting, and so on. We are offering, for what we think to be confirmed again, an additional 2% for a DPS managed service. So that would be where we would run the mini competitions on behalf of local authorities, undertake the evaluations, prepare the contract suites ready for signing. And we would also provide support to SMEs to get them onto the DPS, so how to complete the forms, how to do the case studies, and we'd also do active supply chain engagement within the geographical area. So in terms of timescales, we have asked local authorities if they could indicate to us through an expression of interest whether they would like us to act as lead, or whether they would like access to either the managing agent or the DPS procurement options. So please, if you could respond to us by the 7th, that'll give us an indication of where we need to provide support. If that deadline is too tight and you need more information to to be able to make a decision, please let us know. We know that the procurement is complex, and you'll probably need to talk to your legal teams and procurement teams with regard to access for the managing agent framework, or I think particularly there's probably more risk and liability if you're using the DPS directly, because you are then contracting direct with installers, and then you have various sort of liabilities around consumer protection and so on. So if you do need further information or support on that, please do let us know, because we can we can put something together. We could do another webinar for any procurement or legal colleagues that may want further information. We would then commit to, where we're acting as lead authority, to work up a bid in consultation with you. And for about the 23rd of July, we would like to have sort of feedback from local authorities on draft proposals. By the 30th of July, we would like to have sort of final proposals approved and letters of support from participating authorities, which would then enable us to bring everything together to a 4th of August deadline for BEIS. So that brings me to the end, so I can stop sharing my screen and we can run through any questions that you may have. So I think we do have one from Eddie in the chat asking if a local authority can be part of more than one consortium bid, and or bid directly and separately as part of a consortium. In the BEIS guidance, it does say that local authorities can be part of more than one bid, but it does note that it does all then need to be deliverable. So I'd say, I'd refer you to have a read through the guidance, and just be sure that you're not just trying to put all your eggs in many baskets. If they were all to come to fruition, you have got the capacity to deliver against that. Okay, so hands we have. I think first we had Verena.
Hi. How would you see Surrey County's involvement in this particular bid with the consortium?
So we'd be looking for Surrey to really have liaised with your authorities, because you could act as a lead authority, and you could directly go through the managing agent framework, or you could come through us and ask us to do the management and the contracting thing. But I think the key thing is really to understand what local authorities want to be part of that consortia. And is there somebody who wants to take on the role of lead authority in terms of applications direct to BEIS, and also, you know, sort of the contracting options, the procurement options. So it's not something that we're prescribing. We're just saying really we're here and we can offer support and some services around those sort of different delivery models. So happy to take it offline, Verena, if there's anything that you want to get further clarification on, so you can take that back to your, you know, your partners and current consortium.
I believe at the moment what we're looking at is managing agent framework with yourselves, as lead authority.
Okay.
So as I see it at the moment, it's just an encouraging role to get the local authorities to get their expressions of interest in, and hopefully as lead authority, if they want to go separately, then they've got to have everything else in place, which is quite difficult and takes a long time to get through legal and procurement.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that is the benefit of, you know, either coming through the hub or using the existing frameworks where, you know, managing agents are in post, is the contracts are in flight, and we all know how long and painful mobilisation periods can be, and getting things through various legal teams. So, you know, we're quite happy to you know, reach out to the authorities in your area, Verena, to see where they would like to position themselves, because it doesn't need to be all of the authorities in an area. It would be nice if it was. So, you know, we're happy to work with you on that.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Peter.
Hi, Maxine. Thanks. You know, in Suffolk, it's slightly different. We do our own managing agent, and however, it looks like your option 2 is a good avenue for us as well if we can't find the contractors through our own procurement, so we'll probably take that up. However, my question is more about the concept of LAD. I work across 2 Suffolk local authorities, and in one of them we've done some searches basically through the EPC register, and we've only got about 1% F&G gas heated homes. So yeah, that doesn't give us a lot of opportunity to be brave and go for LAD. And my guess is other local authorities in Suffolk are the same. And we want to do something, particularly for the private renter sector. So we're going to be very speculative there. But I wonder whether that issue has come up before in the previous workshop. Hug isn't an issue. We've got some large areas that are off gas grid, and yeah, that's not so much of a problem. But it's just the LAD thing, and I've just got the fear it's going to be undersubscribed again. You know.
Yeah,
I think that's repeated across the country. You know.
Just sort of to bring up on the first point in terms of energy inefficient properties, we have some boroughs in London that have struggled to find EF&G. Now, I think just to bear in mind, when we're looking at the EPC register, we're only looking at maybe 50% of the actual properties. So one of the things that we're looking to do is to get a, so we did quite a lot of data analytics, and we've pulled up all the current EPCs across our region. There is another data set from Geomni, which would enable us to do the kind of cloning exercise. So it's one of those data sets that if we're looking to do this over a large geographical area, it's probably worth us procuring. It's a fixed cost each time you do it, so it doesn't make sense for it to be each individual local authority having to buy it, because it's the same price. So I think, you know, bearing in mind we want to start looking at longer, more strategic approaches in areas, and we're going to really start to drill down on those data sets to see if we can, you know, develop some of that cloning capacity, because we have got, you know, that there is a 50% gap in actual data. And then I think the second thing is also sort of aligning that with, we're looking at some of the KC income data as well. So that then targets the postcodes and the salaries that people are on in those postcodes. So I think those types of data sets are going to enable us to get a better idea of what might be possible. I think, you know, the advantage of being part of a consortium like you are in Suffolk is there's flexibility to move the funding across the borders. So, you know, I would say it's worth going for the LAD 3, but I think bearing in mind some areas of Suffolk do have a lot of solid wall properties that could potentially take up any slack if a local authority is really struggling to either identify or, you know, to get those households on board.
Yeah, it's just the cap. That's the other issue there, and potentially landlord's contribution if it's a provider sector. But can I ask another question? And it's something I've only just sort of considered. But in houses in multiplication, where you might have several households, is it still the cap for the household income on the total household, where you've got disparate households?
Yeah. So under LAD 2, you're allowed to, if you're looking at a block of flats, or a street of properties, you're allowed to take an average income across them. So if, for example, it's all rented and you've got some tenants, one that won't engage or share their income data, but it's a cavity wall, it's something that's not intrusive, you're likely to be able to complete that measure on behalf of a landlord. They are allowing through LAD 2 to take an average, because what they don't want is one or two either over the income or not participating to stop a project going ahead. So there's flexibility. It might not be very clear in in guidance, it might be implied, but it's certainly something that you can, as a project, go back to BEIS with to have to have agreed on a case-by-case basis. So they do, they do want to enable and they do want to support. The sustainable warmth guidance has got quite a bit at the end in terms of eligible properties that does cover off HMOs. So pretty worth having a look at that.
All right, thanks. Thanks very much.
Very welcome. Do we have any other questions? Hilary.
Hi, sorry, I put a question in the chat.
Oh, sorry, I can't look at too many.
Okay. So is the cost of the Energy Hub doing the bid, would that be chargeable to the local authority? So would we have to have a budget to be able to do that? Or will it come out of the bid money?
So that would be looking, so if we're looking at a 1 to 1.5% capitalisation fee, that would come out of that. So there wouldn't be anything we would expect from local authorities. We'd develop those bids at risk. They may not get funded, but if we, if they are successful, then what we have as a lead authority fee would have covered the cost of the bid development and so on.
Okay, so realistically, it's a no risk situation for the local authority, in the sense of basically the hub are taking all the risks of pulling together the bid, and then if it's successful, then you reap your benefit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll go back now to the questions on the chat. So Hilary, you had another one there in terms of the cost to the local authority for the Energy Hub doing the bid. Just to confirm, that 8% isn't for the hub. The 8% is the managing agent's fee. So that cap to 8% is for the managing agent doing all of the the delivery side of it. So from the referrals through to the sort of household of engagement, appointing the contractors, delivering the works, and closing those out. The managing agent does that aspect. Yes, we will share the slides. Eddie, have a hand up.
Yeah, just wondering, does BEIS have a preference about what types of bids they're most likely to fund? I mean, do they think, oh, this is through the Energy Hub, this is a better quality bid backed by more than something from a local authority directly, or how do they view it? Because we get approached from lots of directions. So
yeah, so I don't know BEIS's approach to that. And obviously, they will be taking an equitable approach to all applications that come in. They have in their guidance set out what their assessment criteria is going to be. Now, obviously, we've got some advantages in that we've got the procurements in place and so on, but I wouldn't, I think it's really, if you've got a strong bid to put forward, you've got a strong bid to put forward. If you can demonstrate value for money, if you're targeting and meeting the aims and objectives of the LAD and the HUG sort of policy points, I think it's looking at those things. So say look at the assessment criteria, and you sort of probably really need to take a bit of an evaluation approach yourself, where you look at the different options and you see what are the pros and cons of each.
Thank you.
Hazel, you asked about the percentage. Are these on the size of the work? So yes, those capitalisation percentage is the sort of that each percent is made up of the 15% capitalisation. That is then aligned with the capital works. So capitalisation is 15% of the total pot. And then those respective percentages then come out of that. So it's really based on what is delivered. Vicky, do you have a question?
Oh yeah, just wondered what the logic was behind sort of removing park homes from the eligible properties.
I think it's around value for money. So they're quite expensive. You know, quite expensive installs in terms of the improvement made or the longer term outcome. I think BEIS sort of are favouring bricks and mortar. There's also sort of, I think, some challenges in terms of compliance with PAS 2035, which requires the whole of the park home to be insulated. And there are various issues around the installation of roof, because it's not really possible to do the roof spaces as you would a loft. So I think there's a number of challenges. We are waiting for BEIS have commissioned a park homes sort of technical best practice guidance. So we've been unable to do a specification for park homes until that has been released, because then that will enable us to make sure that it's aligned with PAS 2035. Some of our managing agents think they do have solutions for dealing with the roofs of park homes. But I think, you know, the sort of the sense we've had from BEIS is really around sort of value for money. They see investment sort of in terms of the bricks and mortar properties being a longer term, more sustainable option. Did you want to come back on that, Vicky?
No, that's fine, thank you. It's a bit of a shame, but that's all because of the
I think, you know, we can do them through LAD too. They will take some park homes. You know, they're not saying no to park homes. They're saying they don't want to see a whole portfolio of park homes. So I think through LAD 1A and 1B, there are a lot of park home schemes, and it's really sort of skewed the, you know, where the funding has gone. An awful lot of that has gone into park homes, and I think they'd like to see a more of a spread across property types. So they're not excluded. It just means, you know, you need to be a bit canny in terms of how those bids are you know, scoped and what the proportion is. So it's still being able to demonstrate, you know, that there's funding going into some of the, you know, more solid wall type properties. But it does, I think, you know, with the HUG, where you've got park homes off gas, you've got a higher intervention rate. So that may well be making the, you know, if it's coming in within 15k, it can make that a viable option.
Okay, thank you.
And just picking up, Verena, on sort of social value supply chain work, yeah, absolutely happy to pick that up, you know, with you, and I'm sure that we can arrange a meeting on that alongside the.
Paul's already responded on that one, so I'll send him some details. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, so when do we expect to see the report? Best practice park homes, and that's been commissioned directly by BEIS. So we haven't got sight of that report yet. We've been expecting it imminently for a while, but we will touch base with BEIS on that. You know, we regularly have sort of touch points in terms of timing. They weren't able to confirm when we last discussed it when that would be launched. Hazel. Did you have a question, Hazel? So your hand was up.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about the costs for EWI, bearing in mind the extra costs that have to be done for ventilation under the PAS 2035 regulations and going 400 metres below damp-proof course. There's a lot of extra costs, and I don't think we can do any EWI under this bid for those average costs, as will come above it.
And I think you're absolutely right there. And I think we have also seen sort of price hike as well in materials and labour. So there's pretty more scope within the home upgrade grant when we're looking at the off-gas properties, but then really looking to see how we can blend measures and property archetypes to enable that average to be used to ensure that, you know, if EWI properties have got the ventilation and the other requirements in, you know, I think through LAD 2 we'll be starting to get a much better idea of the actual costs of PAS 2035. They're very indicative at the moment. We're certainly sort of seeing, you know, installers are certainly saying that things are costing more as well, just in terms of the materials.
Yeah, because on our LAD 1A, we were balancing EWI on park homes and bricks and mortar, and then the average would work. But we haven't got that. But we're not going to have that balance.
Absolutely. So for the park homes, it's going to be probably a 15k cost if you're needing to do, you know, all measures for the to meet PAS 2035. So then it's looking to see, you know, what cavity wall, other types of measures there are to blend with.
We would just do that under our statement of intent.
Yeah, and I think you just need to note the guidance in terms of the statement of intent needs to be compliant with the guidance and the policy objectives. So if you have things within your statement of intent that conflict with the BEIS HUG and LAD policy, LAD and HUG policy would override statement of intent. So, you know, just do be mindful of that. Hilary.
So Rushmore don't have a statement of intent. Is that going to be a barrier to us being able to participate?
Not at all, no, because ultimately, you know, what the statement of intent's been used sort of from other areas has been sort of is enabled them to you know, to look at the types of properties they're targeting and the criteria around that. But ultimately, what BEIS is saying is the criteria for LAD and HUG override what you've got in a statement of intent. So eligibility criteria needs to meet a 30k or 20k cap. If it's going to be equivalised for the number of dependents, that has to be done based on the eco tables. So there, you know, there is quite a strong steer in terms of how the eligibility criteria is met. It's also part of the assessment criteria of the bids. So, you know, bear in mind, BEIS are going to be looking at this as they score the bid. So compliance with the policy is going to score you more than the non-compliance.
Okay, thank you.
Hazel.
Sorry, I didn't put my hand down.
Oh, okay. No problem. Any more questions from anybody? So if we've got a little bit, Verena.
Last one, sorry. Just thinking on the statement of intent, are the managing agents at all tasked with reviewing the statement of intents that are there for each authority? Is there a necessity for it to be reviewed, or just the bid goes in with the sustainable warmth criteria?
I mean, it goes. I'd say it goes in with sustainable warmth criteria. All of the managing agents will be looking at statements of intent as part of LAD 2 anyway. Yeah. So you know, we'll certainly sort of liaise with them in terms of anything that they are flagging as sort of potentially non-compliant or things that are potentially useful. Because what we would obviously like to do is where things are useful and can be used as part of sustainable warmth, is that information is shared across the region.
Okie doke. Thank you.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you all very much for your time. And just like I said on one of the slides, you know, we're really keen to understand, you know, whether you use us as a lead authority or not, what your thoughts and ideas are, you know, around where, you know, capacity and capability support can be provided, and what sort of things could be supported, could be provided that would support you in your retrofit journeys, because we do have scope to look at, you know, commissioning things or acquiring data, doing some analytics. So if there's anything particularly that you think of that you think this would be really useful for us, and I'll say, you know, we are going to launch the retrofit handbook on Monday. So have a look through that. There may be some stimulation, some ideas there where you think, well, actually that's a good idea, but we would need some resource to support our authority in doing that. And we'll also be circulating shortly a consumer insights report that we worked with the Energy Systems Catapult. So that's really looking sort of as an initiation of communications with households and the kind of things that we should be thinking about. It's also got some recommendations in there of the sorts of things that we should be looking at going forward. And that does include things like, because obviously sort of heat pumps, and they've just done their electrification of heat project. So it's been a couple of years worth of work working with partners on installing heat pumps across a variety of tenures and households. Some really interesting lessons learned from that. And one of their recommendations to us is, you really need to make sure that people are eyes wide open before they have a heat pump installed. So a few of their recommendations has been around us doing some archetype modelling for the types of properties in areas that would be suitable for a heat pump, having some fold out cardboard heat pump templates, so a householder can understand what the actual size and scale of that is, what the piping requirement is, and also sort of sound files in terms of what the noise is. So if those sorts of things that you think actually we should be looking at this and taking it forward, when you get those reports, please do feed back to us, because we're really keen to make sure that steps that we take next are really aligned with what's going to be useful, obviously to local authorities and delivery partners in addressing what is quite a big agenda. So with that, I'll say thank you to you all for your time. If you do have any questions, please do come back to us. We will share the slides, so they'll be available to you, on email early next week.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thanks. Bye.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody. Have
Thank
a
you.
nice weekend.
And just hang on there, Maxine, 1 second.
Yeah. Do you want to stop the recording, Sam?
I didn't realise I was recording.
Oh, did I start it?
I can stop it.
This will actually let